I'm not gonna lie, I've been creating horror content for 4 years now, and to be honest, horror isn't scaring me like it used to. So I decided to pick up my digital shovel and do some digging through Reddit, YouTube, and even some of your suggestions to find the most disturbing internet horror out there. So I took the liberty of putting them in order from least to most disturbing in this video for you guys. Not to mention, I'll be slowly revealing pieces of a hidden section at the very end. So essentially, for those brave enough to make it there, y'all get a little something extra. And while it doesn't exactly fit internet horror, it's something that personally has scared me and will scare me for the rest of my life. Also, a quick side note, the Mythic Films Film Festival 2 ended a while ago, and this is way overdue, but the winners will be linked down in the description just in case you guys want to check that out. You wake up in the middle of the night in your bedroom, but something feels wrong. The walls almost breathe around you, closing in and filling you with a dread. It feels like hours before you realize you're hearing a baby crying. The sound of your family member, it's unmistakable, but it sounds almost mimicked, like played through a tape recorder over and over. But on instinct, you're already down the hall to inspect what could be going on. But you don't remember it being this poorly lit in here. Come to mention, why is it so dark outside? You can't even see the street lights or even the moon in general. It's just empty. It is only then that you realize that this is not your house, and that sound that you were hearing before is now rapidly approaching from behind you, and it is something you couldn't even comprehend even in your worst nightmares. This is my interpretation of the analog horror series Obelisk by Lizard Men Incorporated. As of recording this, it consists of about 5 videos, seemingly depicting 2 unknown entities that seem to torment a specific family. And the effects of these on one's life is not completely understood, but I can theorize that along with stalking and kidnapping, it can trap you almost in any memory of your own home, keeping you there for as long as it wants. This reality almost feels like some sort of messed up dream. However, it can interact with you nonetheless. You'll see it almost at random, lurking around your house and watching you as you waste your time chasing down that noise that you are probably never going to find. The second entity in this series appears to be an insanely tall being that lives inside of closets, roaming the house when its victims seem vulnerable. It too will kidnap children and can almost move in and out of reality as it pleases. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these images are going to be burned in my head for a long time, but compared to some of the other items on our list today, it's at the surface of our rabbit hole. So let's go a bit deeper down. My son can't stop growing at night. It waits until you fall asleep. He has been living inside our mattress. Now let's say you heard about this in something like a news article or an email of sorts. The last thing anyone in their right mind would do is want to go investigate this, or even worse, go help the people out. You're gonna end up in the same places, mostly crumbling houses, no neighbors, and in the middle of nowhere. And if that isn't bad enough, in order to properly finish the job, you then have to sleep there with it. This is the chilling premise of the YouTube channel Life of Luxury, where 2 main guys run a service, well, if you could even call it that, of helping people deal with entities that one way or another have made it into their lives. Now, being honest, these videos can be kind of hit or miss, some being generally pretty scary and others not so much. Either way, I couldn't imagine this being real, having to sleep with not only complete strangers, but whatever they called you to deal with in the first place. Not to mention, they are often unarmed and easily able to be attacked while they are sleeping. And I don't know about y'all, but there is no amount of pay or, God forbid, good nature that could compel me to do something like this if it was real, which it's definitely not, right? Now, when people think of the SCP universe, most of the time they think of things like 173 or 096 or many other common entities that you see showing up in the Containment Breach game. But I wanted to look into what was the scariest SCP had to offer. And after scrolling Reddit for a while, I found something that would catch my eye, mostly because of the first few sentences that blatantly state that you should never even view this article. And you would think this would be to protect the company, but it is 100% more of a warning to you personally. And any sort of charge or punishment wouldn't even be needed, as you would already be screwed. Remember, your belief is key, as apparently this document would explain what happens after death. Talk about one hell of a hook. This article seems to be so far hidden in the SCP database that it is not something that you are supposed to find. And to be honest, I wouldn't have even found it myself if it weren't for Reddit. And yes, I'm viewing this article now, so if any of you guys are worried if it is actually deadly or a problem, well, we're in this together. SCP-2718, Dameron Class Cognitohazard. It is my understanding that SCP-2718 is some form of a document that upon viewing or perceiving it all must be wiped from memory. Otherwise it will cause a total collapse of one's psyche and many unintended consequences will follow. Despite this, SCP-2718, similar to something like Chernobyl in real life, constantly requires volunteers to enter to attempt to contain it without maintaining low exposure to the document and then promptly wiping their memory using an extreme memory erasing compound. It is unknown where this terminal exactly is present, but I would assume it is somewhere isolated underground. But this is not where the scariest part even shows up. Rather, later on, you view some of the testimonies of the subjects that have been sent to contain this thing, along with the testaments of the most elite of the SCP Foundation, known as the O5 Council. And all of them seem to have a similar theme of death, trying to prevent it, and mainly what comes after it. Despite many tests and forms of resurrection or prevention succeeding, no one could truly remember what the afterlife was like, except for one member, by the name of Roger Sheldon, the man who remembered. Originally implied to be a dead man with his corpse scattered across an island, when he did return to the living, he wasn't himself anymore. Or more like, it was him, but his attitude had completely adjusted. He began to do everything he could to avoid death, and that's because he discovered that once you are exposed to 2718's knowledge, your specific afterlife is altered. And instead of whatever was bound to happen before, you will instead feel every single thing that happens to your body when you die, including the gas buildup, the rotting of your skin and muscles and bones, and maggots eating and laying eggs in your corpse, everything. And as long as you have read the article, there is no going back. This hell is now guaranteed to be your fate. Now, just a disclaimer, this is just an SCP article drafted up, and I don't want anyone to think this is real or fact. Regardless, this is insanely dark, even for an SCP. I feel like every day, theaters are starting to get less and less relevant. And for the people who work there at night, you can definitely attest how creepy they can be during the day and when they're completely abandoned at night. But it's not something the average person would typically see, unless something was incredibly wrong. But what if on your next visit, when you walked through these doors in front of you, rather than enjoying a normal movie, you see some sort of warped nonsense playing on the screen? And it doesn't take long to realize that you're not only now completely alone in this theater, but when you try to exit through the back door, you end up walking right back in the front, with the theater becoming more and more liminal and empty with each pass, until eventually the only living person is the ticket taker, who mutters only one line on repeat and sends you on your way no matter how much you try and reason with him. Me personally, I don't know what would be worse, being trapped in this scenario or finding it as a haunted PC game from the early 2000s. People speculate whether this game actually exists, and even more about the existence of a man with a swirly face that some people claim is hiding inside the game somewhere. Many iterations of this game have been remade, obviously, but as of now, the original Curse game remains a legend. Have you ever dreamt this man? Well, now I sure as hell hope I never do. This man was the subject of a global phenomenon back in the early 2000s. With people claiming that they saw him over and over in their dreams, despite never meeting him in real life. No one quite understood who this was and why he appeared inside the minds of so many people, which led me down a bit of a separate creepy sign rabbit hole. This image caught my eye, the deja vu area. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've never quite understand this sort of thing when it happened to me, and the same thing seems to happen in my dreams. Sometimes frequently feeling like I've had this dream before, and this isn't the first time I've dreamt about this specific place, which in my theory could be the reason that we have this feeling of deja vu in the first place, when we have prior dreams to places that we have yet to have been. But is this actually possible? And if it is, are there certain things that dreaming about can signal something being seriously wrong with wherever you are or plan to go? Which leads me back to these signs. What would this man showing up in your dreams really mean? And will he then start to show up after seeing his face? Or even worse, already showing up after you never have? Now, I remember when I was younger and there were certain audio cues that would really kind of shake me up for the rest of the day. And these mainly consisted of random text-to-speech that would activate on your laptops and some forms of disturbing hold music and mostly Amber and EAS alerts. In case you somehow are unaware on what these are, essentially these alerts are made by the government in order to alert a large amount of people as quickly as possible that either there is someone being kidnapped in your area or there's a serious danger that is going to be affecting a large amount of people and carries a need for evacuation. And apart from, say, weather alerts, I haven't experienced any of these that weren't complete tests. And to be honest, I pray I never do. Especially when it comes to,
"This is an emergency alert issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. We regret to inform the nation that several airplanes en route to Asia have become unresponsive and have not returned."
however, it has come to my attention from a comment from one of you guys that
"This is a follow-up message from the Federal Aviation Administration. We apologize for any confusion and alarm caused by our previous emergency alert. We have reason to believe that the previous message was a result of a hacking incident."
did that just say Asia doesn't exist? Alright, that's a new one. I'm honestly genuinely curious what could be going on with this one, and it seems that the government is seeing mass disappearances of entire continents by an unknown presence, almost as if they never even existed. The question is, how many of you could actually physically confirm on a moment's notice that every country you were shown to have existed actually exists at any given time? And how many of you have been taught things that you've never really taken the liberty to confirm for yourself?
That the continent of Asia was at some point a real place, but has disappeared from existence due to several tears in the fabric of reality.
Now, these alerts in general seem to dig into a primal fear and they cause panic every single time I hear them. Now, I don't know if that was by design, but if it's not, then the government seriously needs to consider redesigning these things as to not cause mass hysteria. I did, however, find one of these scenarios that silenced itself, and I didn't realize how much scarier this would be, as it implies that whatever is threatening humanity is not coming, it's here. And there is a good chance that even by this broadcast making noise, that you'll be found and bled dry. Can you hear them? The humming? You know a situation is serious when rather than can I survive this, it's can it just be quick? As we just saw with the last section, horror is often the scariest when it is based in reality. And despite the criticism it has received, The Painter is one of the scariest analog horror series I've seen in a long time, and one of the only things that I refuse to watch a second time. Even for making this video, I'm going completely off from memory. Just imagine for a second you're one of the law enforcement officers having to respond to one of the calls in this series and having to walk into a typical barn only to find bodies of animals and humans gored and toyed with like some sick game, only to discover a painting and the sick names that come with them, knowing the person that did this is still out there. And now that you are involved with the case, you and the people close to you are very much able to be the next targets. And for most of the series, you debate if they're supernatural entities themselves, only to find out that they are just human beings. And in case you think these cases are too gory or too unrealistic to be something that has actually happened to someone in real life, you would be surprised at how little some of these scenarios are exaggerated from real events. The Painter, if y'all haven't deciphered already, is a controversial true crime like horror made by Urban Spook about the case of a brutal unknown serial killer, trying not to spoil something here, that maims victims from babies to kids to officers, and then paints crude and overall fucked up art depicting the end result. Now, I know there was a lot of complaints and others might not find this scary because rather than being scared, they might find it over the top or too gory. Being honest, this scared me more than any analog horror has in recent times. And in my opinion, it is definitely the darkest in this rabbit hole video. And to be honest, I'm convinced that the people who hated this series only did so because it made them uncomfortably scared. Some deranged lunatic could definitely do something similar to you. But on the bright side, the answer to most of these is just to simply lock your door. Like, seriously. There exists a scenario scarier than anything that you could ever find on the internet. It is scary because, while unlikely, it is entirely possible that it could happen to you. This is Point Nemo, a spot that is universally known as the furthest you can possibly be from land. If by any stroke of hell that you find yourself drifting along here, the closest humans to you are on the International Space Station. Best case scenario, you are on a giant oil tanker. But this does not mean you are safe, as you could easily fall victim to gigantic waves that could easily sink your ship, or hitting debris in the water, similar to how the Titanic sunk. Which, if you thought you would survive that, you have to remember that it didn't look like this when it sunk, but rather pitch black like this. Yes, that's right. It still gets dark when you're at sea, and a lot of the time storms are going to hit you harder. And no matter how big your ship is, it can always sink. So let's say you now end up in the water. Assuming you're smart and you were prepared for this and have gear with you, you'll be happy to know that even harmless tuna fish can grow to be this big. And sharks, which are even bigger, can feel your heartbeat through the water, so even if they can't see you, they see you. But that's not even the worst part. The ocean will be happy to drown you itself, even with an air tank. And you could easily get fatigued enough to slowly sink into the depths, never to be seen by any human ever again. And most of the time, your body will remain intact at the bottom of the ocean.